Shalawam, and welcome back to the Hidden Chosen. I am Hadasabat Saiwan, and I am back with End Times Prophecy Watch, and we are still in part 14. This is the final segment, the fifth segment, a word for the Gentiles. And now we're going to look at what it will look like for the Gentiles after the southern kingdom is removed from the earth, after the northern kingdom is regathered in the second Exodus, leaving only the Gentiles on the earth to endure the coming judgments on the earth, and along with the judgments, the evil entities as well. So the righteous remnant of the Gentiles, we will see what will happen to them and how they're going to be able to bear up at this point of time. So let's get started. In the past 4 segments of this study, we looked at a few extraordinary Gentiles. A couple of these Gentiles came into the congregation of Yasharaal and were counted in the genealogy of the tribe of Yahawashao, of Yasharaal. Another few believed in HaMashayach. We're talking about the Roman centurion. And the other Roman centurion called Cornelius and his household that also believed in HaMashayach and worshipped Alahayam Yahweh. All right? So although these ones were not included in our genealogy, they became his devout followers. Same thing with the Samaritans. Remember the woman at the well? Well, what HaMashayach started, his disciples finished. All right? Now we will look ahead to the future to see all that the Gentiles will have to endure with patience and how they will make it through the judgments until the very end. Now, a lot of Christians believe that they're going to escape the judgments. They're going to escape the tribulation. All right? This is their hope because they are not believing in Alahayam Yahweh. They're not believing in his son. They're not worshiping them. They're not worshiping him, rather, worshiping Alahayam Yahweh. All right? They are worshiping other gods, pagan gods. And these pagan gods have them in a rut, a religious rut, believing in a lot of man-made doctrines, the doctrines of devils. They feel that their righteousness is sufficient because they've said a sinner's prayer, and that is sufficient for them to escape. But they do not understand the purpose of judgments. They do not understand the purpose that these judgments are coming to sift, to help us to determine who we will want to worship. If Yasharaal will not escape the judgments, how much less will the Gentiles escape? We have been through judgments after judgments after judgments. And this is the reason why it is time for us to pack it in and go home. Because there are no more judgments after we're regathered. And we're going to regather before all of the judgments of Alahayam are rolled out. Same thing with the northern kingdom, even though they are not awakened yet. But yet they still have to go through their series of judgments. And they have to go through a terrible war with the two beasts. The beast empire number 7, which is a technology-based empire called the NWO, and the anti-Messiah. They're going to have to go through some fierce fighting for their lives because they will not bow to the beast and its image. They will not take its mark. Some will. Some will look for the easy way out. But there will be many that will not. And a lot of them are going to be martyred because of this. The beast will rise up against them and prevail against them. These are the things that we have to go through. But those that are faint of heart, they're faint of heart because they have no faith. And they have no faith because faith comes from only one source, and that is Yahawah. If you are believing in Jesus Christ, you will not have any faith. And so the thought of going through a tribulation, to go through judgments, will make you faint, will make you lose your mind. And so you go the other way to think, no, 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 no. This cannot happen to those who believe in Jesus Christ. Because once you say that sinner's prayer, it doesn't matter. You're saved. Everyone, we're going to go up to heaven and sing kumbaya and sit around this banquet tables and be happy forevermore. That is a fantasy. That is not reality. Because when you go back to the Word, the Bible itself speaks specifically about judgments. Judgments come because of sin. And we need to be judged because we need to make a choice. We have to choose whom we will serve. Like Yahawashao said, who is Joshua, as for me and my house, we will serve Yahawah. How many Gentiles are saying that today? They will say that about Jesus Christ. He's not the same person. So Alahayam will reveal himself to the Gentiles during this time, and now it is up to them to choose to worship him. But still, because of stubbornness and wickedness of their hearts, they're still going to reject him. Because the next aspect of this whole scenario is that they are only coming in to serve us. And they will not, many of these Gentiles will not want to serve Yasharaal. It's written down in the Word. I've shown it to you. This is not my word speaking from my lips. This is the word of Alahayam, that he's speaking through my lips. All right? And because they despise us, they will not want to serve us, furthermore serve Alahayam Yahawah. Because you can't say, well, I don't want to serve Yasharaal, but I will serve Yahawah. You can't serve him because in order to serve him, you got to first serve us. Because your service to us is a service unto him. All right, let's move on. Just like our southern kingdom forefathers in the upper room, where they received Ruach HaKadosh with power, signs, and wonders following them, so these righteous Gentiles will experience similar miracles. Otherwise, they'll be wiped off the face of the earth, and Alahayam will not do that. He already made a promise that he's going to bring in a remnant of the Gentiles with us. Because no man can survive on this earth with the wickedness that's being rolled out. And on top of the wickedness being rolled out, the judgments that Alahayam is also rolling out. How can man survive any of these two dynamics of judgments? Of one is persecution, the other one judgments. How can a man survive either? When we go through our day-to-day tribulation, our trials, our testings, we can barely hang on. Can you imagine when this world starts to rock because of the wickedness that will be unleashed upon it? How will a man be able to hold on if he did not have faith in Alahayam Yahawah, and then Alahayam in turn would then protect him? Not just a man, woman, child as well. And the same thing with his judgments, because when his judgments come, he's coming with vengeance. He's coming with fire, with fury poured out. And he's coming to destroy. All right. Sometimes destruction wouldn't come yet, but pain will be coming. Severe pain. That's also part of his judgments. All right, let's read on. Oberai, the book of Hebrews, chapter 2, verse 1. Therefore we ought to give the more earnest heed to the things which we have heard, lest at any time we should let them slip. That means we need to hold on to the word of Alahayam. Don't let them slip through your hand like sand through your fingers. You hold on to the word. And the way how you hold on to the word of Alahayam is by ingesting it, by allowing Ruach HaKadosh to reveal the hidden message, which is the truth. And then you can ingest it. Now you can hold on to the word. Verse 2, for if the word spoken by angels was steadfast, written in stone, and every transgression and disobedience received a just recompense of reward, how shall we escape if we neglect so great salvation, which at the first began to be spoken by Yahweh, and was confirmed unto us by them that heard him, meaning his apostles? Every transgression and disobedience that have not been repented for will receive a recompense. And that reward is not a good reward. That reward is the lake of fire if you do not repent. It happened with the angels when they fell, when they started to worship Gadriel, who is Satan, one of the Satans. And they're reserved for hell, for the lake of fire. Same thing with anyone who worship them and disobey Alahayam Yahweh. Walking in sin, embracing sin, loving sin. Because pride steps in and tells them you don't need to do anything. You just need to be you and say a sinner's prayer and all is good. How are we going to escape if we neglect so great salvation? Because there's only one way to be saved, and that's through HaMashayach, believing in him. And when we believe in him, then the ball starts to roll for the salvation plan to unfurl in our favor. Confirmed unto us by them that heard him. So now the apostles were his eyewitnesses, and they've written down the gospels as they had witnessed and heard. And yet we have some brothers and sisters out there rejecting the New Testament, rejecting HaMashayach. How are they going to escape the wrath of Alahayam? How are they going to escape the lake of fire? All right, verse 4. Alahayam also bearing them witness, both with signs and wonders, and with diverse miracles, and gifts of Ruach HaKadosh according to his own will. So who was showing the signs and wonders with diverse miracles? The apostles. And even some of the disciples as well. Why? Because they were walking in the Spirit. They were empowered by Ruach HaKadosh. And he gave them these gifts. The signs, the wonders, and the miracles. And those were the ones who believed. Not only the ones that were the eyewitnesses, who were the apostles, but the disciples as well that came up after them. Because the disciples were the disciples of the apostles. And they learned from them. And so they were also able to do great things as well. Great miracles. And this is all according to the will of Alahayam Yahweh for those who believe in him. Those who believe in his Son. Those who walk in the Spirit and in truth. And worship him in that way as well. In spirit and in truth. In order for the righteous Gentiles to endure the coming tribulations, they will need help from Alahayam. He will give them his help by the way of his Ruach, like he did for our forefathers in the past and even for us today. That's how we're surviving. We're surviving because he has given us help. Without Ruach HaKodesh, we would have been annihilated. But because of his power, we are being sustained and kept from the destruction of the enemy. In the same manner, Ruach HaKodesh will sustain and keep his Gentiles from the judgments and the destruction of the enemy. He will fill them with his power so that they will be able to cope. They'll be able to handle what is coming at them. They will not be fearful. They'll be people full of faith, just like the apostles and the disciples after HaMashayach passed on and rose again. They'll be walking with great faith because they believe in a higher power, the highest power. They believe in him and they worship him. So where's the fear coming from? Fear only comes when there's a lack of faith. This will be the age of signs, wonders, and miracles following his righteous Gentile believers. He's coming back. There are going to be interactions with angels as well. We don't see much of that happening today because Ruach HaKodesh is dealing with the southern kingdom in a specific way. Because, you see, for a long time, we've had the knowledge of HaMashayach until we were taken in slavery because of our own rebellion. So now we are now having to show our faith, because before then, when the miracles and the signs and wonders were occurring, our people still didn't believe, like our forefathers in the wilderness. They saw the miracles and they still didn't believe. So now this is a new era, a new season, where we are going to have to believe without seeing. We're going to have to believe without seeing. We're going to hear, but we're not going to see. And we're going to still have to hold on by faith, believing what we've heard. And we've got to walk it out. It's a new season for us. The northern kingdom will be slightly different because they're going to go through some very intense tribulations called the time of Yaakob's trouble. So they're going to get some interaction there with some angels, but not too much, because they too have to show faith by believing in Alahayam Yahweh. And now the Gentiles, because they have to go through the longest of these, all the judgments and the persecutions on the earth, they're going to need some help. And so the age of signs and wonders and miracles will occur to help them, and should help them to believe. But many still will not believe. Let's read on. Acts chapter 4, verse 23. And being let go, they went to their own company. And these are the apostles that were arrested and beaten, and reported all that the chief priests and elders had said unto them. And when they heard that, they lifted up their voice to Alahayam with one accord and said, you see what happened? They were beaten. They were threatened. Were they afraid? No. They lifted up their voice with one accord and said, Yahweh, you are Alahayam, who have made heaven and earth and the sea and all that in them is, who by the mouth of your servant Dawud had said, why do the heathen rage and the people imagine vain things? The kings of the earth stood up. These are the leaders of the earth. And the rulers were gathered together against Yahweh and against his Mashayach. For of a truth, against your holy child Yahawashao, whom you have anointed, both Herod and Pontius Pilate with the Gentiles and the people of Yasharaal, this is the southern kingdom, were gathered together. They were gathered together against HaMashayach. Our own people put him on the stake and said, let his blood be on us and on our children and on our children's children. And so said, so done, because look what happened to us after that. The Romans came in. And in fact, the Romans were already there, but the Romans now started to persecute even greater than what we were already going through. All right? We brought it upon ourselves. So everything that we are going through today is our own fault. Verse 28, for to do whatsoever your hand and your counsel determined before to be done. And now, Yahweh, behold their threatening. So what they're saying here, it was determined by Alahayam Yahweh to allow these Gentiles and even Yasharaal to do what they did against his own son. He allowed it. And grant unto your servants that with all boldness they may speak your word. That's what they prayed for. They didn't pray to escape. They didn't pray for a rapture. No, they prayed that he will continue to put the word in their mouth so that they can speak, continue to speak in boldness. Verse 30. By stretching forth your hand to heal, and that signs and wonders may be done by the name of your holy child Yahawashao. This is what they prayed. They didn't come to Alahayam Yahweh with their hat in their hand and their legs trembling because of the enemies, or because of their enemies and the threats. No, they came and they prayed a bold prayer. They asked for boldness. They asked for his word to continue to flow through them, and the healing and the miracles and the signs and the wonders to continue to flow forth from them. In the name of his holy child, Yahawashao. Verse 31. And when they had prayed, the place was shaken where they were assembled together. And they were all filled with Ruach HaKadosh, and they spoke the word of Alahayam with boldness. You see, this is what the Gentiles will have to do. All right? You got to be as bold as a lion and just as fierce in the face of everything that is going to come against you. You can't shrink back. There will be other Gentiles who will feel lost, as they will not know Yahweh or HaMashayach. Alahayam Yahweh will raise up leaders of the righteous Gentiles, who he calls kings in his prophecies. And it will be up to them to minister the word of Alahayam unto the lost Gentiles. So today, Gentiles are not required to teach. They're not required to learn. Learn from whom? From Yasharaal. The southern kingdom, because we're here, and the northern kingdom when they're raised up. Because after we're gone, now it will be up to them to teach the Gentiles that are lost, that are seeking a way. All right? And they will provide them all the information they need to learn, all the knowledge they will need to learn. This will be their opportunity to make a conscious decision to serve him, because when the leaders of the righteous Gentiles teach them, people now will have a conscious decision to make. To either continue on as they are or to worship Alahayam Yahweh. These Gentile leaders will be anointed with his power to do so, meaning to speak boldly, to know what word they will speak, not thinking ahead of time, as the word will be given to them within the very moment they will need to minister, just like the disciples of old. They're not going to be walking around with a Bible and like, okay, this is the message for today. No. He will lead them to people, and they will minister to these people, just like how Ka'apa'a went to Cornelius in his house, and there was a group of people there waiting to hear from him. It's going to be the same way. And not only will they minister the word, but they will also perform miracles in the form of healings on behalf of Alahayam to help the lame, sick, and other afflictions people will have at this time. People are going to be sick, dying, and they will have the power to heal. Acts chapter 5, verse 11. And great fear came upon all the assembly, and upon as many heard these things. And by the hand of the apostles were many signs and wonders wrought among the people. And there were with one accord in Shalawam, that's Solomon's porch. And of the rest durst no man join himself to them, but the people magnified them. And believers were the more added to Yahawah, multitudes both of men and women. This is the point. Now Alahayam is going to give the Gentiles a chance to choose him. After all the lies that they used to believe in the Jesus Christ and the Yeshua and all the different gods that they used to worship, now this is their opportunity to make a wise choice to serve him. And this is how people are going to be added. Their numbers are going to be added to. Verse 15. Insomuch that they brought forth the sick unto the streets and laid them on beds and couches, that at the least the shadow of Ka'apa'a, that's Peter, passing by might overshadow some of them. The miracles that were wrought by the apostles will be similar for the righteous Gentiles, but not identical. It will be similar. These verses are being used to help us to understand how Alahayam used his anointed servants of Yasharaal to heal his people. And this will be done again with the Gentiles. However, there will be no chance to lay people on the streets so that the shadow of the anointed leader will heal them, as there will be great chaos on the earth. But rather, there will be the laying on of hands once again and with great power. All right? Then you're not going to have a chance to lay people on the streets because the devil is looking for you. All right? But there will be the laying on of hands. The assemblies of newly reformed Gentiles will gather in groups in various places, ready to move to new locations as they are guided by Ruach HaKodesh. They will be scattered, and this will help the gospel to be spread once again like wildfire. And not only the word of Alahayam, but his Ruach as well. Because you need Ruach HaKodesh to fill you with his fire. That's what makes you fierce and bold. It is through Ruach HaKodesh that the word of Alahayam is understood through revelation. Therefore, the fear of the enemy will be quenched. So things will be going on, and it wouldn't bother you one bit because you're too focused on the mission that Alahayam has given to you. And you're too full of the Spirit. All right? We're not called to be fearful in the face of the enemy. We're called to be fierce. Fierce. All right? They're more afraid of us than we should be of them. But because we don't know any better, we become afraid of the devil and his agents. When you read the Bible and you see how the apostles were and the disciples, even unto death, they didn't care. Even the prophets of old, they didn't care. They weren't afraid of death. All right? Because they were full of Alahayam's spirit, his Ruach. It is through Ruach HaKodesh that the word of Alahayam is understood. I read that already, sorry. They will move around in boldness, but in secret at the same time. And they will see only their purpose in reaching the lost Gentile. This will be their purpose, their mission is to reach the lost Gentiles, preaching and teaching the word of Alahayam. All right? That's all will be on their mind, to reach the lost. Not like the ones today that think that by reaching the lost is by telling them believe in the sinner's prayer and you be raptured. That's not reaching the lost. That's telling more lies. But you minister to them the word of Alahayam, the truth, because they need to repent. And they need to be baptized with water and with fire. All right? Acts chapter 8, verse 1. And Saul was consenting unto his death. And at that time there was a great persecution against the assembly which was at Yahawashao. And this would have been the death, if I'm not mistaken, the death of Stephen. And they were all scattered abroad throughout the regions of Yahawada and Samaria. You see, Samaria is coming up again, except the apostles. So the apostles, they weren't running helter-skelter, but the disciples were. All right? Because remember, the apostles know they've moved up in rank. They were the eyewitnesses of HaMashayach. And they're full of Ruach HaKodesh. And they're there to oversee everything that is going on in these cities. Verse 14. You drop down to verse 14. Now, when the apostles who were at Yahawashao heard that Samaria had received the word of Alahayam, they sent unto them Ka'apa and Yahuwachanan. So they sent them Peter and John. Remember, Peter already ministered to the centurion and his people. So he's used to ministering to Gentiles now. He understands the mission. He understood the mission because it's in the past. But remember, when HaMashayach went to Samaria and met the woman at the well, you see how this is still, the effect that he left behind is still blossoming and growing. Because now more people in Samaria were believing. They received the word of Alahayam. Verse 15. Who, when they were come down, prayed for them that they might receive Ruach HaKodesh. Because Ruach HaKodesh now is being poured out upon the Gentiles that believed in Yahweh, that believed in HaMashayach. Verse 16. For as yet he was fallen upon none of them, only they were baptized in the name of Adawan, Yahawashao, HaMashayach. They were baptized in water. Now they needed to be baptized with fire. And the only way for them to be baptized with fire is for the apostles to come and pray for them. Yasharaal had to come and pray for them and minister unto them. They couldn't do it themselves. This is the point that I'm making. Now, today, while we are here, we are the ones responsible for sending forth the word to our brethren and the Gentiles. When we are gone, the Gentiles that had received the word would now be responsible to send forth the word to other Gentiles. But today, all right, they're not required to teach at this point of time. Only after we're gone. Because by that time they would have enough knowledge and power from Ruach HaKodesh to be able to do what we used to do, which is to minister the word of Alahayam. Verse 17. Then laid they their hands on them and they received Ruach HaKodesh. They laid hands on them. And this is what the Gentiles, the righteous Gentiles, who will be the leaders, this is what they're going to do. They're going to lay hands so that people will receive Ruach HaKodesh. Verse 25. And they, when they had testified and preached the word of Yahweh, returned to Yahawashao and preached the gospel in many villages of the Samaritans. Now the word has gone forth for the Samaritans, the Gentiles. All right. Besides Yahweh's judgments that will be rolling out upon the earth, there will be great persecution that will come against anyone who will not comply with the evil forces still operating on the earth. They will have their earthly agents seeking out believers in HaMashayach to destroy them if they could. Yahweh will protect his people from his judgments and from their enemies. Nevertheless, there will still be people who will be destroyed, yet not in vain. All right? It will be through these fiery trials that will continue to sift the Gentiles, separating the righteous from the unrighteous. Peace will come at last for the earth and the Gentiles at the beginning of the millennial reign of HaMashayach. But then there will be the final sifting for the Gentiles after the 1,000 years are completed. This will be the final test to see who will continue to serve Alahayam Yahweh and who will not. There's one last test coming. So let's read on and see what it is. Revelation chapter 20, verse 1. And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. So not only Gadriel will be cast into the bottomless pit, because this is who it is. He was once the Satan that possessed the new world, the NWO, Beast Empire number 7. But because of the great earthquake, because Gadriel loves gadgets, he loves technology, and the great earthquake is going to destroy all technology and cast him out of that entity called the NWO. All right? Now this is Gadriel being cast into the bottomless pit, and a seal will be put upon him, but not him alone, but all the other fallen angels, Nephilim spirits as well. And once they have been sealed, their lips are sealed, and they are imprisoned, the earth will have 1,000 years of peace, because they are no longer able to provoke and to tempt. But that doesn't mean that the people on the earth will not still be wicked, because we see it in the Bible. What HaMashayach said, if they don't bring their offerings, he's going to bring a drought upon them. And if they continue not to bring their offerings, he's going to destroy them where they stand. So they will still do wickedness unprovoked by the devils and his demons, because they got little demons in them now. They're the children of the devil. So they're going to be destroyed. All right. Let's read on. And after that, he must be loosed a little season. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Yahawashao and for the word of Alahayam, and who had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands. And they lived and reigned with HaMashayach 1,000 years. Now this is a very select group that will be resurrected. Not the Gentiles, only Yasharaal and those of our lineage. Those are the ones that are coming back to reign with HaMashayach for 1,000 years. Verse 5, but the rest of the dead lived not again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. So the rest of the dead is speaking of the Gentiles that had died. Gentiles of Yasharaal and Gentiles of the Gentiles. Right? Now the first resurrection is the resurrection of Yasharaal. Verse 6, blessed and holy is he that has part in the first resurrection. On such the second death has no power. But they shall be priests of Alahayam and of HaMashayach, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. So those are the people like Masha, Ahawaran, Marayam, all the ones that are coming back to live and reign with HaMashayach to be his priest. All right? They're coming back. The Gentiles who are still alive at the beginning of the millennial reign will continue living in peace until the 1,000 years are completed. However, the rebels who will choose not to worship Yahweh will be destroyed by HaMashayach. This is during the 1,000-year reign. The first resurrection is reserved for our righteous forefathers who were either martyred or passed on due to old age or sickness. Notice the different categories of those who will receive their judgment of righteousness. Those who were beheaded for the witness of Yahawashao, that would be the southern kingdom and also the northern kingdom martyrs. These are the martyrs. All right? The northern kingdom, this will be the ones that are coming after they're awakened from their slumber. All right? Right now, the northern kingdom is sleeping. And for the word of Alahayam, those are the ones of Yasharaal's lineage throughout the ages until HaMashayach walked upon the earth. So up to that point. So remember, HaMashayach came and he brought the gospel. But before that, our forefathers, they were martyred, destroyed for the word of Alahayam. All right? Let's read on. And who had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands. And that will be exclusively the northern kingdom. Because remember, they're going to wake up at the same time around the same time when the beast empire, number 7, rises up, as well as the anti-Messiah. Right? The rest of the dead is speaking of the rebels of Yasharaal that had perished, and they're awaiting the lake of fire. And it is also in reference to the Gentiles who had died but will not receive their judgment until the white throne judgment. All right, so it can go one way or the other way for these Gentiles, but for Yasharaal, who were not resurrected, they're doomed for destruction in the lake of fire, because our people have already been judged, and that's why they're going to remain dead, because the lake of fire, that's exactly where they're headed. All right, they're heading straight for the lake of fire. By this time, when the first resurrection begins, the lake of fire is already created. All right, because we know that the Satans and their armies and whatnot, they are going to perish. They're going to go into the lake of fire. And this would be at this time that Alahayam will cast those of our brethren, the rebels, into the lake of fire. This is their time. This is their judgment now. There's the judgment of righteousness, which is the first resurrection. And then there's the judgment of destruction, which is the lake of fire. All right? And the Gentiles, only Alahayam knows who will make it into the kingdom because they've passed on and they're waiting. All right? They're waiting to be judged now. Only he knows where they're going to end up. Many will end up in the lake of fire. A remnant will make it into the kingdom. Now, the reason why I'm pausing here is because I'm looking at what I have written here. It says here, the rest of the dead is speaking of the rebels of Yasharaal that have perished, awaiting the lake of fire. So remember, before the lake of fire is created. There is a place, a holding place for the wicked of Yasharaal, and then there's a place for the righteous of Yasharaal. That's called Abraham's bosom, paradise. And that is for, and then there's another place for the Gentiles. All right? There's a third place for the Gentiles that have passed on. The first resurrection, because our people have already been judged. All right? All they're waiting for now is that time when Alahayam is going to fast track them to the lake of fire. So when this time of the resurrection, the first resurrection comes around, it will be at this point of time that our people that have been waiting for the lake of fire will be ushered into the lake of fire. Right? So the dead that are, the rest of the dead that are waiting now will be predominantly the Gentiles. Right? They're still waiting. They're waiting for the final judgment, which will be the white throne judgment. The white throne judgment is not for Yasharaal, because we have already been judged and sealed. Everything is done for us. Now this is now the time for the Gentiles. All right? So hopefully you understand what I'm saying here. So let's read on. The rest of the dead is speaking of the rebels of Yasharaal that have perished, awaiting the lake of fire. And it's also in reference to the Gentiles who had died but will not receive their judgment until the white throne judgment. So you do understand that. So, okay, so let's move on to Revelation chapter 20, verse 7. And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. And they went up on the breadth of the earth, and compassed the camp of the saints about, and the beloved city. And fire came down from Alahayam out of heaven and devoured them. Now, before I move on, I already explained to you how the earth is going to be one landmass divided into three parts. You have the middle portion, which will be where Yasharaal, the 12 tribes of Yasharaal will reside. And on either side will be divided into quarters, the upper quarters and the lower quarters. All right? And so the scripture here is showing us that even after 1,000 years of peace and living in prosperity, that the Gentiles will still ride out with Gadriel after he's released from his prison to come against Yasharaal to try to take away what we have, what we will have, because we don't have it yet. That means that deep down inside of them, they will be very jealous and envious of us, but they cannot express this until this time, because they will be afraid of being destroyed by HaMashayach. So they're going to go through the motions of bringing their offerings and doing the things that they're required to do, but it will not be of a sound heart. And we know this because of this scripture that is telling us that Gadriel will have a massive army coming from the four quarters now, the upper quarters and the lower quarters. All right? Most of the people, they like to live in the upper region, because when you go back now to Yasharaal, the book of Ezekiel, chapter 38 and 39, I believe, 38 and 39, when it talks about the war of Gog and Magog, it helps you to see that mainly the wicked, the ones who are wicked in their hearts, but they showing forth a false righteousness, right? They're pious, but it's not heartfelt. They're going to reside in the upper quarters. All right? However, that does not mean that those in the lower quarters will not have a few that will want to ride out with Gadriel. All right? They're going to be all over the place, but they're going to be mainly concentrated in the upper regions. All right? So they want to come down now and encompass the camp of the saints, and we already looked at that. I've done a study on this already, the War of Gog and Magog, and showed you that it is going to be by the hand of Alahayam Yahweh who is going to draw them into the mountains of Yasharaal. They're not going to come too near our city. He will not allow it. All right? But they will come into the mountains of Yasharaal, and that's where he, Alahayam Yahweh, is going to destroy them there. Verse 10, and the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. So this is Alahayam's doing, because he's the one who's going to send the fire out of heaven and destroy them all. Verse 11, and I saw a great white throne, and him who sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them. So at the great white throne judgment, the old earth and the old heavens will be destroyed. I also did a study on that. I believe when I did the Revelation series, it will be Revelation chapter 21. I believe it's chapter 21. All right? And this, no, it will seem as if we are in like limbo, so to speak. But that's the power of Alahayam Yahweh, because now we are transforming to be exactly like he is. All right? So these changes will not affect us whatsoever, because the ones that are dead, they're already spirits. And we that are alive will be both physical and spiritual. All right? So he removes the old heavens and the old earth. Right? And then he begins to judge the Gentiles. That's verse 12. And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before Alahayam, and the books were opened. And another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the books according to their works. So you have the books with their works, whether good or bad, even things that they've said, good or bad. And then you have the book of life to see if their names are written in the Lamb's book of life or not. Because if their names are not written there, they are going to be cast into the lake of fire. It means that it was never written down, or it was written down but blotted out because of rebellion. Verse 13, and the sea gave up the dead which were in it, and death and hell delivered up the dead which were in them, and they were judged every man according to his works, according to the things, the deeds that he performed on the earth, whether good or bad. And this definitely will not be Yasharaal. This will be totally the Gentiles. We've already passed through our judgments. All right? But these kind of judgments, a judgment for righteousness or a judgment for destruction. Verse 14, and death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. Because death and hell, they are evil spirits. All right? This is the second death. And whosoever was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire. And this is what all of this that we are doing is to make sure that we don't end up in the lake of fire, that our names will not be blotted out of the Lamb's book of life, that we make it into the kingdom. There's only one way into the kingdom, and that's by believing in HaMashayach, who cleanses us of our sins, clothes us in his righteousness. He releases his reward unto us, so now we have a fighting chance to make it into the kingdom if we can't carry on that path, that narrow path. There's no other way. Anyone tells you there's another way, they are wrong. No one will be able to escape the judgments of Yahweh, not even Yasharaal. And if the 12 tribes of Yasharaal have to go through his judgments in order to be sifted, how much more will the Gentiles need to go through his judgments to be sifted? For all those who believe otherwise, they are in for a rude awakening. And there are many, many Gentiles today that will have a rude awakening because they do not believe in HaMashayach. They do not believe in Yahweh. They are not walking in his laws and his commandments and his statutes. They think it's impossible for them as people to do these things, so they can just carry on living as they want to live. And grace will take care of everything else. Sinner's prayer has them saved. You're not saved yet. What are you being saved from? You're not saved until the day of redemption. The day of regathering for the southern kingdom, the day of regathering for the northern kingdom, and at the ending of the age for the Gentiles. You're not saved yet. Even those that may be walking in righteousness, speaking of the Gentiles, if there's still an opportunity for them to work wickedness. They still have their sin nature. It's possible. That's why Alahayam is going to put them through these series of judgments, because only the righteous will make it through. All right? So that's the ending of this marvelous study. We're going to begin with, we're going to end with the blessing for Yasharaal, taken from Ba Madabar, chapter 6, verses 24 to 26. That's Numbers, chapter 6, verses 24 to 26. Yabarakak Yahweh wa Yashamarak, may Yahweh bless you and keep you. Ya'ar Yahweh panayo alayak wa yachanak, may Yahweh lift up. May Yahweh have favor upon you, and let me read that again. Yabarakak Yahweh wa Yashamarak, may Yahweh bless you and keep you. Ya'ar Yahweh panayo alayak wa yachanak, may Yahweh cause his face to shine upon you and have favor upon you. Yasharaal Yahweh panayo alayak wa yasham lak Shalawam, may Yahweh lift up his face upon you and give you peace. And now we're going to recite the command that we're instructed to recite when we lie down, when we get up, when we go out, and when we come in, taken from the Barayam chapter 6, verses 4 and 5. That's Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 4 and 5. Shama o Yasharaal Yahweh Alahayana Yahweh Ahad wa Ahabath Af Yahweh Alahayak Bakal Babak Wabakal Napashat Wabakal Ma'adak. Hear, O Yasharaal, Yahweh our Alahayam is one Yahweh, and you shall love Yahweh your Alahayam with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. And with that I will say, Shalawam, Shalawam, All praises to the Most High, Abba Yah.